Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting. Today we're tracking a massive $55 billion bet in Texas that could merge the Musk empire, the $1 trillion enterprise AI bubble facing a harsh reality check, and why scientists are suddenly using language models to talk to sperm whales. Let's dive in.
Sounds like a pretty intense lineup today.
Oh, it really is. And I want to welcome you to today's deep dive. Our mission today is simple, right? We are cutting through the absolute noise of all these market trends and tech announcements. We want to help you figure out who is actually winning, who is losing, and, where the market is heading next.
Yeah, and we're focusing purely on the second-order effects here. I mean, the headlines are always broadcasting one narrative, but if you look at the underlying data and the actual mechanics of these technologies, a completely different reality emerges.
Exactly. And that divergence between the headline and reality is, it's perfectly captured in a massive hard news drop at Sawyer Merritt today.
Oh, the SpaceX thing.
Yeah, SpaceX just secured a 35-year full property tax exemption from Grimes County, Texas.
35 years.
Right. It's for this project they're calling TerraFab. It's a semiconductor facility starting at a $55 billion initial investment with the potential to scale all the way up to $119 billion.
Which is just an unbelievable amount of capital.
It's massive. They're paying the county $10 million up front plus $20 million annually. And in exchange, they're building advanced chips for AI, robotics, and space tech, supposedly creating around 1,800 local jobs. But the most crucial detail is actually in the concept art.
Right, the logos.
Yes, the facility is this massive solar-covered manufacturing plant, but it's branded with 3 distinct logos side by side: Tesla, XAI, and SpaceX.
Which naturally forces us to look at a post from @Kalshi today. Traders on their prediction markets are currently pricing in a 50% chance of a formal Tesla and SpaceX merger within the next year.
Wait, 50%? That soon?
Yeah, and Dan Ives at Wedbush is even more aggressive. I mean, he's projecting an 80 to 90% chance of a merger by 2027, following a potential SpaceX IPO. The market is basically looking at that TerraFab factory, and assuming the borders between these companies are just, they're about to evaporate.
I mean, honestly, the vision makes logical sense from an engineering perspective. Think of TerraFab as the ultimate vertical integration play, right?
Sure, on paper.
Well, if you control the absolute base layer of compute, the actual silicon for the self-driving cars, the orbital rockets, and the large language models, maintaining separate corporate silos just seems inefficient. It's all just one massive ecosystem of compute and engineering.
See, the pitch deck version of that is incredibly compelling.
Huh.
But the operational reality of merging those entities, it's a total regulatory nightmare.
How so?
Consider the mechanics of ITAR, the International Traffic in Arms Regulations.
Yeah.
SpaceX is fundamentally a defense contractor.
Well, right.
ITAR legally classifies rocket guidance systems and aerospace telemetry as munitions. You can't just casually share intellectual property or even software engineers between a retail automaker with global operations and a defense contractor.
Yeah, the government tends to frown on that.
Exactly. A Tesla engineer working on self-driving algorithms cannot legally look at SpaceX code without specific federal clearances, especially if they're a foreign national.
So the regulatory walls are built out of concrete, not just corporate policy.
Yes. And then you have to consider the capital structure. I mean, SpaceX relies heavily on private investors, including foreign ones. Tesla is a massive publicly traded entity with millions of retail shareholders.
Right.
If you force a merger, the risk of shareholder dilution for Tesla is profound. So it raises this really serious analytical question. Is this proposed mega company actually about achieving operational efficiency? Or is it just a mechanism to funnel capital from the profitable side of the empire to fund the incredibly capital-intensive aerospace side, and doing it all without really asking the public markets for permission?
Man, that's a cynical take, but it makes a lot of sense. It's just a massive physical bet on the future of infrastructure. But, this unbelievable volume of capital flowing into hardware, all the billions being spent on chips and facilities, it brings us to a staggering crisis happening right now at the software layer. We got a harsh reality check today from @PMarca, Mark Andreessen.
Yeah, he is highlighting a massive disconnect between capital expenditure and actual return on investment.
It's pretty brutal. Andreessen quotes a new Bain survey that, honestly, it should terrify any enterprise CIO listening right now. Over $1 trillion has been spent globally on AI by corporations.
1 trillion.
Yep. But of the firms they measured, 40% are seeing cost savings of 10% or less.
Yeah.
We are looking at a $1 trillion capital deployment for a marginal single-digit efficiency bump.
That's a terrible ROI.
Seriously. And Andreessen's takeaway to this data was simply, quote, "The arbitrage is intact."
Well, you really have to look at the mechanism of how these companies are attempting to integrate AI. They are treating it like a software patch rather than a fundamental infrastructure shift.
Right, they're just bolting it on.
Exactly. Instead of redesigning their core workflows to be native to large language models, they keep their outdated legacy systems and just bolt an AI chatbot onto the side. It's literally the equivalent of plugging a modern supercomputer into a 1990s dial-up modem.
Wow, that's a great analogy.
The raw processing power of the supercomputer is completely irrelevant because the corporate data pipeline, the modem, is just too narrow and archaic to pass the information.
So when Andreessen notes that the arbitrage is intact, he means the competitive advantage is still massive for those agile startups that actually build their processes around the AI from day one.
Precisely. The legacy giants are just fumbling the execution.
And, this failure to achieve efficiency explains a massive counter-narrative about what AI is actually doing to the labor market. We have some super interesting data from @Levy, Aaron Levy, the CEO of Box.
This completely upends the whole initial panic about white-collar job destruction.
It really does. Levy points to the April JOLTS data, the Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey, which is basically the gold standard for tracking labor demand. We just saw a 731,000 surge in U.S. job openings, reaching 7.6 million total. Levy highlights that AI is not killing software engineering. It's actively creating dramatically more software projects.
Because if you think about the actual workflow mechanics, AI tools right now are incredibly fast at generating boilerplate code. But they lack architectural reasoning, and they are highly prone to hallucinations.
Right, they make stuff up.
Yeah, they cannot be trusted implicitly. So when you give an entire engineering department AI coding assistance, you essentially turn every junior developer into an incredibly fast code generator.
But then who reviews that code?
Exactly. Who ensures it integrates securely into the wider system? You have suddenly created a massive bottleneck that requires senior human developers for maintenance, security auditing, and long-term oversight.
And it's not just engineering. The same mechanism applies to sales and marketing. Let's say your AI agents can autonomously scrape the web, do all the research, and send personalized outreach to generate like 10 times the volume of inbound leads.
That sounds great until you realize the AI stops there.
Right. You now require a massive increase in human account executives to actually take those calls, build the relationships, navigate the corporate politics, and actually sign the contracts. We built AI to automate work, and it's basically just creating a massive backlog of human labor at the final stage of the funnel.
Which is putting immense pressure on the developers who are footing the bill for all this compute in the first place.
That brings us to a major shift happening in the developer community, which was highlighted today by @Gursley-Oros. Developers are becoming violently price sensitive.
Violently is a good word for it.
Yeah, people are just blowing through their GitHub Copilot Pro Plus credits. And rather than paying the massive enterprise upgrade fees, they are flocking to cheaper, good enough solutions. Oros points to Cursor's Composer model and a tool called Factory.
Now, Factory is a perfect example of how the market is routing around the monopolies.
Yeah, it uses a mechanism called smart routing. It basically acts like an automated traffic cop for your code. When a developer hits enter, Factory runs this lightning-fast micro-evaluation. It asks, is this prompt asking for a basic HTML formatting fix or a really complex database architecture build?
And then it routes it accordingly.
Right. It automatically routes the simple request to a virtually free open source model, and it only sends the complex request to an expensive frontier model like GPT-4. It maintains peak performance while instantly cutting costs by 25%, and it's completely invisible to the user.
The implication for anyone investing in SaaS right now is just brutal. I mean, we are watching the real-time commoditization of the model layer.
Globally.
If a background tool like Factory evaluates and swaps models millisecond by millisecond based purely on price and benchmark performance brand loyalty ceases to exist, a developer does not care if Claude, GPT, or Llama wrote the reject script as long as it compiles.
And open source is aggressively eating into those enterprise margins. There's a post today from @SteepPete reporting that OpenClaw, which is this major open source AI project, just hit an astonishing 10 to 20 million weekly downloads.
Wow.
And that's not just hobbyists tinkering on the weekend. That includes massive Docker deployments, GitHub integrations, and secure internal enterprise forks.
That represents millions of compute instances, completely circumventing the API billing systems of the major tech giants.
Oh, the giants are clearly feeling the squeeze,
Okay.
which is exactly why they are aggressively pivoting their consumer platforms. And Masad, the CEO of Replit, pointed out a major launch from Meta today. They just released an AI business agent directly into WhatsApp, Messenger, and Instagram.
Right into the chat apps.
Yeah, it autonomously handles customer queries, it books appointments, and it even closes retail sales. Masad noted, quote, "You can run, but you can't hide from B2B SaaS."
Well, Meta is an ad-centric consumer giant, sure, but even they realize that the only way to justify the tens of billions they are spending on NVIDIA GPUs is to convert their massive user base into paying enterprise software clients.
Because the underlying infrastructure required to deploy these agents is dropping to practically zero. Look at the stats dropped by at Xi today. They integrated Grok's speech-to-text and text-to-speech models onto Vopi, which is a platform for building enterprise voice agents.
The metrics on that are staggering.
97% speech reasoning accuracy, a 0.78-second conversational response time, and it costs just $3 an hour.
$3 an hour for a near-instant, human-sounding agent that never sleeps and can integrate directly into a company's database. I mean, that price point obliterates the economics of offshore call centers.
Actually, really does.
But, and this is a huge but, that exact same collapse in the cost of compute is simultaneously arming bad actors.
Yeah, that is definitely the dark side of this infrastructure boom. We have a deeply concerning study today from Anthropic AI regarding the security implications. They mapped 832 malicious accounts over the past year, tracking them against known cyber attack tactics.
And what did they find?
67% of those malicious accounts heavily utilized AI for malware preparation. But the critical metric is the rise of autonomous chaining. That drove the number of medium to high-risk actors from 33% up to 56% in just 6 months.
We really need to define autonomous chaining here because it changes the entire threat landscape.
Go ahead.
We are no longer talking about a hacker using ChatGPT to draft a convincing phishing email. We are talking about agentic loops. A malicious actor gives an AI agent a broad goal, a sandbox environment, and an open terminal. The AI autonomously drafts the email. If the target clicks, the AI autonomously evaluates the network architecture, writes a custom script to bypass the specific local firewall, executes the lateral movement, and deploys the payload.
Without anyone touching a keyboard.
Exactly. If a step fails, the AI reads the error code, rewrites its own exploit, and tries again. It's evaluating and executing a multi-stage attack without a human pressing a single key.
When the skill barrier for complex cyber warfare drops to zero like that, the traditional perimeter defense of corporate cybersecurity just completely collapses.
And it forces a massive regulatory confrontation. Think about it. When an autonomous agent executes a breach, who is legally liable?
That's a great question.
Is it Anthropic or OpenAI for training the foundational model? Or is it the cloud infrastructure providers who hosted the agent and allowed it to run a continuous loop without any oversight?
The legal framework does not even exist for that yet. But, the exact same agentic capability that's driving these cyber threats is also powering unprecedented breakthroughs in life sciences.
The dual-use nature of this tech is wild.
It really is. At GDB, Greg Brockman at OpenAI just announced a massive upgrade to GPT Rosalind. That's their enterprise model, specifically tuned for life sciences. They are applying those same autonomous agentic loops to drug discovery. The model can autonomously iterate molecular designs, run simulated experimental workflows, and even use external software tools to validate protein folding.
And of course, the hype cycle immediately kicks into overdrive.
Naturally. At Kimenismus is tracking Codex's back-end leaks today, specifically highlighting a deployment codenamed Mercury Alpha. This suggests that OpenAI is preparing to drop GPT 5.6, maintaining an absolutely relentless 6-week release cadence.
6 weeks is just absurd.
Yeah. And if you give a model with 5.6 level reasoning, the agentic tools of Rosalind, it can iterate and test thousands of molecular compounds in a simulation every single second.
But this is exactly where we have to confront the friction of the physical world. The market gets so blinded by the speed of compute. Yes, an AI can autonomously iterate 1 million molecule designs in a silicon simulation, but you cannot compute your way past wet lab validation. You cannot algorithmically bypass FDA clinical trial timelines. You still have to physically synthesize the chemical compound, culture it in a physical Petri dish, test it on a mouse, and run human trials that take years to observe side effects.
Yeah, biology takes time.
Exactly. No matter how infinitely fast the AI generates the initial idea, the real-world physical bottleneck remains completely unchanged.
The physical world absolutely refuses to move at the speed of software. But, innovators are finding fascinating ways to bridge that gap. I want to highlight a really fun thread from @Claudii featuring a London technologist named Ben James.
Oh, I saw this, the hardware guy.
Yes. He is actively building tangible hardware to pull AI out of the screen and into the physical environment. He took an old vintage typewriter, routed the mechanical keyboard signals through an Arduino microcontroller to a Raspberry Pi, and now he physically types his prompts to Claude on paper.
That's so cool.
And the typewriter's motorized carriage types the AI's response back onto the physical page. He even built a jumping USB crab, he named it Claude, that physically clatters around his desk to signal when his background code needs attention.
See, on the surface, it looks like novelty engineering. But he is addressing a profound human-computer interaction crisis. We are experiencing massive screen fatigue. By making the AI physical, by forcing the interaction through mechanical resistance and physical space, it radically alters the user's focus and relationship with the tool.
It grounds the technology in human reality. And speaking of expanding our relationship with reality, we have to look at the bioacoustics research summarized at Polymarket today. Scientists are deploying large language models to decode animal communication.
This is wild.
It involves Project CETI and the Earth Species Project.
And the mechanism here relies on the core architecture of large language models, right? Which are fundamentally just massive pattern recognition engines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So rather than training the models on human text, they are training them on massive data sets of animal audio and visual data. They have identified unique vocal signatures in wild mice nests. They found signature whistles in dolphins.
Amazing.
Yeah, they're mapping the complex, structured acoustic codas of sperm whales and even utilizing computer vision to translate the intricate arm-waving sequences of cuttlefish.
The Polymarket post notes that traders are speculating on direct human-to-animal communication. But again, we have to rigorously define the data limitations here.
Always bringing us back to reality.
Someone has to. Look, an LLM can perfectly map the syntax of a sperm whale click sequence. It can identify that a specific pattern correlates with hunting or identifying a pod member. But without the lived physical context of being a sperm whale in the deep ocean, the semantic meaning, the actual conscious experience behind the click, remains totally inaccessible.
So no deep philosophical debates with dolphins anytime soon.
Sadly, no. We aren't getting two-way Dr. Dolittle translation. However, as a non-invasive tool for tracking marine ecosystem health and wildlife conservation, it is an unprecedented leap forward.
It is genuinely wild to see the exact same underlying math predicting protein folds and mapping whale clicks. Let's close out today's deep dive with a few quick hits from the culture and aerospace sectors. Looking up at the stars, NASA announced today that the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope is launching 8 months ahead of schedule.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, going up August 30th, flying on a SpaceX Falcon Heavy.
The optical capabilities on that thing are staggering. It boasts a field of view over 100 times larger than the Hubble Space Telescope.
It is designed to survey billions of galaxies, map dark matter distribution, and it's expected to detect over 100,000 transiting exoplanets. It's an instrument literally designed to unlock the fundamental origins of the universe.
And the duality of modern engineering is truly something, isn't it? We have a multi-billion-dollar telescope deploying to the Sun-Earth L2 Lagrange point to map the cosmos, and in the exact same news cycle, Tesla proudly announces an Apple Watch integration so users can check their car's internal pet mode temperature directly from their wrist.
A peace of mind for the golden retriever sitting in the grocery store parking lot is a high-value engineering problem.
I suppose it is.
Just to round us out with a final culture note for the sports fans listening. Fabrizio Romano dropped an exclusive today, utterly dismantling the rumors of an Erling Haaland agreement with Real Madrid. Enrique Kelme, a challenger for the Real Madrid presidency, was making these massive election promises and flashing supposed documents on television.
And it was all fake.
Haaland's camp flatly rejected it, calling the claims entertaining but completely fabricated.
Empty election promises colliding instantly with verifiable reality. It happens in politics, and as we saw with the Bain Enterprise data today, it certainly happens in technology.
It certainly does. So for everyone listening right now, balancing their own portfolios and managing their own tech stacks, we've covered the $55 billion hardware bets, the grim reality of enterprise ROI, developer revolts, autonomous cyber threats, and mapping the oceans. What is the one specific trend they need to watch out for tomorrow?
If you synthesize the data we reviewed today, my prediction for tomorrow, and really for the rest of this financial quarter, centers entirely on developer price sensitivity.
Okay, tell us why.
Well, we discussed the GitHub credits running out. We looked at tools like Factory actively saving 25% through background smart routing. And we saw Mark Andreessen highlighting the dismal ROI for legacy enterprise AI deployments.
Yeah, the $1 trillion spend.
Exactly. The era of writing blank checks for the hype cycle is over. I predict that within the next quarter, we will see a major tier 1 AI provider drastically slash their enterprise API pricing. Alternatively, they will have to abandon their generalized one-size-fits-all models entirely and pivot hard toward highly specialized vertically integrated agents just to stop the financial bleeding.
That makes a lot of sense.
The commoditization of the model layer is no longer just a theory. It is actively happening on the balance sheets. Watch the profit margins of the infrastructure providers incredibly closely.
The initial hype has evaporated, and the brutal reality of the market is taking over. Thank you for joining us for the Daily Videcasting. But before you go, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We spent the last 20 minutes talking about $1 trillion chasing silicon and the frantic race to build the smartest model. But if the open source movement makes raw compute virtually free, and tools like Factory make coding essentially free, the ultimate power dynamic shifts.
The hardware versus software flip.
Exactly. The most valuable asset won't be the algorithm. It will be proprietary, messy, physical world data. When the digital brain is completely commoditized, do the companies that control the physical hands, the logistics, the manufacturing, the real-world execution suddenly become the undisputed kings of the new economy? Keep an eye on who is building in the physical world. We'll see you tomorrow.